Everybody, the August 26th Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, additions and deletions to the agenda.
Yes. I would like to add a discussion item, please, for the timing of this particular meeting. If we can discuss that at the end, I would appreciate it.
Okay, so approved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? Okay, good. Thank you.
Okay, next would be public comment. Does anybody in the audience have any public comment other than concerning the appeal? Okay, so there's no public comment outside of the appeals process, so we'll move on. Approval of minutes. I don't think we can approve the minutes. We only have 3 people here that were at that meeting.
Well, we can
You
approve
weren't
this
here,
approve.
John.
If you read over them, we can approve it.
Brian, I believe I'm allowed to vote.
Absolutely.
Yes.
As long as the 4 that are here are comfortable, given that one of them wasn't here, you can still read through the minutes, obviously, and as long as,
Okay.
if the other 3.
So I'll consider a motion to approve the minutes of the meeting of June 24th.
So moved?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? The minutes are approved. Okay, we have one appeal tonight, Appeal 25003, and before we start, it's pretty obvious we only have 4 members of the board here. Michigan law requires that a majority of the appointed members of the zoning board be present to approve or vote on any items, which would require 4 votes. So with that said, it would have to be a unanimous vote to pass anything. Now, the appellate can request a full hearing in front of a full Board of Appeal, should they so decide, before any vote is taken. So up until a vote is taken, you have the option to say, no, we don't wish to proceed, we'd rather be in front of a full board. So that would be your choice. Okay, the way we'll proceed tonight is first Brian Borden, our zoning person, will make a presentation. We will ask him any questions concerning his presentation. Subsequent to that, the appellate would make their presentation. The members of the board can also then ask them any pertinent questions concerning their presentation. The members of the board can then discuss the matters amongst themselves, go around the table and voice opinions as to what they might want or consider. We would also then consider public comment from any members of the public that would wish to speak. The only thing I request is that we direct all questions either to the person of the board asking the question or to me as the chairman. In other words, we want to avoid any crosstalk. So if we could observe that procedure. Okay? Brian, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. All right, let's go through our normal presentation and process here. So the subject of our case this evening is the property at 22664 East River Road. If you can follow the cursor on the screen, it is this property right here, has a very large rear yard, opens up, narrower frontage, primary residence here. There are, as I will note shortly, 4 detached accessory buildings, including one that is the subject of tonight's case. So property is on East River Road. It is a waterfront property that has the waterfront across the actual roadway. And in general, it is north of Ferry, just to give you some parameters. So site and surroundings are all zoned R1A, as are most of East and West River along the waterfront. So as you've probably noted through my review letter and the materials included by the petitioner, this property dates back well over 100 years. Original development we, at minimum, we know is 100 years and believe it to be even longer than that in terms of when this property first started being developed with in this case, the structures and the buildings, some of which that are still there today. What ultimately has occurred is obviously over time and over the course of 100+ years, zoning came into be, and zoning has changed over time. So there are two primary non-conforming conditions of the site. The property itself is not one of them. The property is a fully compliant R1A lot. However, as I mentioned, there are 4 detached accessory buildings. Ordinance only allows 1, so that's one of the matters here. The other is that the building that is the subject of tonight's request actually was, dating as far back as we can tell, has always been used as a dwelling. So it is, in this case, when the principal residence was built, it became a secondary dwelling. This is a single-family zone district, so the use of that building is also considered non-conforming under the zoning ordinance, though it has been maintained to the point where the use has still been deemed illegal non-conforming by the township. So the use, in other words, has never ceased in terms of continuous operation. So they do still have standing to utilize the building for said purposes. In terms of the ordinance itself, 18.6 related to nonconforming building structures, as well as 23.5B, which is the board's standard review criteria for dimensional variances. So I can go back to this slide at any point if you wish to look back at the aerial photo. I do have the site plan on the screen now that was included with the submittal. So again, as I mentioned earlier, it's a relatively large parcel. I believe it's roughly 5 acres, narrow frontage, widens out, and is very deep in terms of the property itself. If I go back to the aerial, you can see exactly about how much that encompasses. So quite large parcel. And then this building that I've sort of encircled in red here, this is the building that we're discussing this evening. So this is the secondary dwelling that the petitioner is seeking to make some improvements on. This is a look at, again, just another slide from the submittal material. So this is the look at the building itself as proposed. So this is what the elevations would look like. A petitioner or one of the board members did bring in a small sample of the siding that is proposed to face this building. I can pass that around when I'm done if the board wishes to see it, or I can just let John grab it for me. That would be much easier for me. Thanks, John. And then, as per usual, Mr. Schweikert has also taken the time to go out and submit some photos, provide them to me so that I can then put these in the presentation. If you did not have a chance to do a site visit, hopefully these help. And for any public that we may have, again, the idea here is try to give you a good representation of what we have out at the site. So this is the building in its current state. It is currently under repair, remodel, maybe is the better term that I should use. They did obtain a permit in April from the Township Building Department to initiate the work and get going with where they are today, really. So I've got a few slides here. You can see one of the interior, a couple of the exterior, including the petitioner. Thank you for smiling. And then we have, again, a little bit further away view, getting you a full view of the building, and a couple more from the interior just to see the level of work that is being undertaken here. In terms of the ordinance, the real reason we're here is 18.6E. So 18.6E provides a couple of different opportunities for owners to reinvest into non-conforming buildings without expanding them. That's one thing I want to make sure I get clear in this presentation is they are not expanding this proposed building. They are simply investing money into it to remodel and really take care of it for the years that it was unfortunately not maintained as well as it should have been. So what 18.6E says in this particular instance is that they have the ability to invest up to 50% of the value of the building within a 12-month time frame. So what has happened thus far is the petitioner applied for and was issued a building permit to do work up to that 50% threshold. So in April, they obtained that permit. They were able to get started on the project and move forward. However, the issue that we're running into is they are not able to complete the project because essentially they've maxed out that dollar value. So we'll have a little bit more on that as we go here. So
A quick question.
please,
I'm sorry,
of
Brian.
course,
Yeah, I need some education.
Sure.
Why do we have that in place to begin with? You can only spend so much money per year on this type of structure. That part I didn't quite understand.
because it's a non-conforming building.
Right, but so you can only spend so much money per year?
That's correct.
Why is that though?
Because the goal of your non-conforming provisions are to not retain and prolong the lifespan of non-conforming buildings. The goal of the non-conforming provisions is to get rid of non-conforming buildings. That's why there's a limitation on how much you can put back into it.
I guess that part is understood. I guess what the problem the part I don't understand is, so they can come back 12 months later and keep going and it can be approved.
Correct.
Okay. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, and maybe I can discuss this with some other folks
It is
later
a
on.
very common provision that I've seen in almost every zoning ordinance I've ever worked with and/or prepared.
It feels like, or sounds like, it's just slowing down work.
It prevents a non-conforming building from being 100% reinvested in when, again, the goal is not to prolong the life of non-conforming buildings. There's zero issue with your regulation. Your ordinance says exactly what it should say.
Okay, it just, well, this is going to be a discussion for another time, I
Sure.
guess. I don't want to waste a whole lot of time.
Nope,
It
that's
just
fine.
didn't make sense to me. It still kind
I
of doesn't.
understand that, but again, you have to take it in the
Understood.
context of non-conforming
Understood.
provisions. And again, this is absent this, then it would essentially be a free-for-all and we'd never get rid of any non-conforming building ever. Because you
But it
could
still
just,
has to go through planning, it still has to go through building.
it has to go through the building
Building
department. It's
department,
just a
I'm sorry,
permit.
building. So, okay, another time.
It's fine.
Thank you, thanks
course.
for clarifying.
Yeah. So the one thing, I've thrown out a couple of different numbers. So the provision has a reference to 50% of the value as well as a 12-month consecutive time frame. So one of the tasks that I put back on the applicant, and when they come up here, I'd like them to address this to the best of their ability, is I would like for the board to know at least an estimate of the overall project value as well as their anticipated time frame. So because the provision does have those two dimensional components to it, or at least the two numerical components to it, I do want to make sure that that's part of the record and part of the board's consideration as we move forward. So that is one thing that I have asked of the petitioner through my review letter. And then my closing point on this slide is simply that this does not preclude them from the need to obtain another or future building permit. So if the ZBA were to grant the variance as requested tonight, they will still have to, for subsequent improvements, they'll still have to go through the permitting process through building department. This does not eliminate that from the process. So I want to make sure that was clear, both for the board and also for the petitioner. So in terms of a quick overview of my full review letter, I really focused on the three primary standards with the closing comment on all of the secondary standards. So in this case, as is pretty common with non-conforming buildings, uses, et cetera, strict compliance won't prevent continued use of the property, but it does put forth some pretty strong restrictions, particularly in this instance. As I noted, the building in particular is estimated to be roughly 125 years old, and unfortunately, it was not maintained very well, at least through the last couple of ownership cycles. Was still usable, was still habitable, was not deemed dangerous at any point, but obviously an old building not getting the attention that it needs certainly doesn't get better with age when it's not maintained. So in this particular case, strict compliance, it's really twofold. It either results in less improvement into the building, i.e. they're capped at the 50% for now, or, and this is really what's more of the concern here, and this is the petitioner's, one of their main claims, is that it results in a building that's going to be left incomplete until that 12 months has expired. And that's really their primary concern, is leaving it in its unfinished state, and then the damage that may occur throughout the time to simply wait again until next March, within which they could then get a follow-up permit to continue the work. So I think when you take those two things into consideration, and again, this is up to you all, but that could be viewed as being burdensome to the property owner in this particular case, which is the key component of practical difficulty. With respect to the substantial justice test, in all honesty, the alternatives that we have here are basically what I just said. It's either less money invested value-wise into the building, or it's an incomplete building until such time as the 12 months that the ordinance requires has lapsed. So as I noted, the permit was issued in April, so in essence, they could get another permit. The 12 consecutive months would be March, and then the building would essentially have to sit once the 50% value is invested. It would then sit roughly until March. They could then come back and apply for the new permit for the next percent or the next ratio of value into the building, and then go from there for the next 12 months. So in this case, I do think that you could find granting the variance to be fair, especially to the owner, but also to surrounding owners. This is one of those cases where I don't know that either of those options is explicitly reasonable, at least in my opinion. Having a building forced to sit unfinished until next spring doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And maybe kind of along the lines you were going, I think given the age of this structure and the nature of this property, I think that the investment cap is also being quite restrictive here, in that obviously it required a lot more work than was allowed by ordinance. We just lost our computer. The third key standard being extraordinary circumstances, and that those situations were not self-created. So I've already shown you the property. It is quite large. It is somewhat unusual in shape. As I noted, the real issue here is the time frame within which it was developed. We're looking at a property that's 100, 125 years. We're looking at buildings that are 100, 125 years old. That is relatively unusual. I think I even put a accommodation in my review letter that I do commend the petitioner for taking this project on. Obviously, it's a huge project on their part. And in all honesty, it's probably easier to just tear down a 125-year-old building than to bring it back to life and put it back together. So I did put forth I commend you for taking that project on. I think I told you that verbally before too, but the idea here is that the age of the development, the age of these buildings, really are the direct correlation to why it's non-conforming today. We didn't have zoning in 1900 to apply to this property, and so they could do essentially whatever was allowed at that time, or probably whatever they wanted. And as time continued, then zoning comes into place, starts to put more restrictions on them, and really is what's created the issue here, not anything that the petitioner has done themselves. So that's the secondary key part of it, is that whatever the extraordinary circumstance or unique condition is, can't be created by the petitioner. In this case, I think it's pretty clear that it was not. I don't think Dane was pushing 125 years old, so.
I'm guessing not.
Yeah, me neither. So, closing point is just related to, as we've talked about before with the board, and I apologize for the public and or petitioner, there are 14 ordinance standards. I do go through all of them in detail in my review letter, but for my presentation purposes, I tend to collapse those other 11 into a generic comment, and that is the reality that I think given the nature and the scope of the project and the property itself, I don't foresee adverse impacts on public safety, surrounding properties, neighborhood character, the impacts on light and air, traffic, nuisances, etc. So as far as at least my opinion is concerned, I don't believe that this project will result in any issues in any of those other 11 criteria that are in your ordinance. So that's all I have right now, Mr. Chair, but I'm happy to take any questions.
Mr. Chairman, question?
I have a question.
Okay,
Go ahead.
questions?
Actually, I have two questions. The first one is, with it being over 100 years old, is it deemed historical under the preservation laws or no?
So I have not seen anything, there's no documentation that's been provided that it has any form of formal historic designation. It is, in this case, it may very well have, and the petitioner may have some more background for that, but Township doesn't have any record, and there was nothing in the submittal that provided or put forth formal documentation of it being a protected or historic structure.
Okay, and the other question that I have is, the non-conforming says that it had to be in use for that type of usage, correct? Are they doing a full renovation and doing the floor plan? Because I saw a lot of framework in there, or are they just updating and renovating?
Well, I'll let the petitioner speak to the exact extent of the remodel, but it's a pretty massive remodel, yeah. I mean, you can see in the pictures, they're really tearing this thing down to what it was and making the improvements that they deem necessary.
Mark?
I'm all set, sir, for now. Thank you.
John?
Brian, I want to make sure I'm clear on the ordinance.
Yep.
Okay. So the permit defined the 50% standard
Correct.
when it was given, and the clock started running sometime.
April.
April at the time the permit was issued?
Yep.
Okay. Now, you said that after 12 months, okay, the applicant could come back in, get another permit, and what happens to the percentage? Is it the same 50% that was originally
So
approved?
there are 2 points to that particular section. One is for, there's a 25% limitation for standard modernization of non-conforming buildings, and then there's the 50% standard, which is for safety-related issues. So in this first instance, the building official deemed these to be safety-related issues. Whether or not that same threshold would hold true next spring, I don't know.
Okay.
It would, but so that at a minimum, they would be allowed 25% investment into the value of the building, keeping in mind too that the value of the building will also reset given the investment that they put into
All right,
it.
so basically the clock rewinds to zero and you start over with the possibility that it's a 25% as opposed to 50. My
Correct.
question is, has the applicant raised the issue that a variance might be needed regarding the 50% standard? Is there any cost factor in this, or are we
Well,
only
it's
talking
so-
about timing?
I think it's both, and that's one of the questions that I want the petitioner to address to you guys tonight. Is I don't know the estimate for the total project valuation in terms of that 50%, and I also don't know the anticipated time frame within which they expect to complete the project. So
Okay, so if the applicant tells us, I'm going to complete this in an additional 6 months.
Yep.
Okay, then we have the option of saying, okay, approved variance until X date. At the same time, if the applicant comes in and says, I need 80%.
Right.
Okay, that would be a second factor which we would consider as part of the variance approval.
I think I've only viewed it as one variance. I don't know if that's where you're going.
One
or not.
variance with two factors.
Yeah, I think to me it's one variance. I think it's predominant. The way I'm envisioning it is, I think it's a variance to increase the 50% such that they can complete it as opposed to waiting the 12 months. But I did, like I said, I did ask them to present you with both valuation and time frame estimates so that we have that as part of the discussion tonight.
Hypothetically, is it necessary, could the ZBA simply say, finish the project without time limitation and without cost limitation? Is that
Yeah, absolutely.
that
Yeah,
would-
because I do believe they do have a plan for the full project. What's happened is they could only get the permit for the first 50%. The building official wouldn't issue the permit above that 50% threshold.
Okay, so based on, if the ZBA did that tonight, then he would go back, get another permit, which would reflect the decision that we made.
Correct. That would then give the building official the authority to issue a subsequent permit for above and beyond the first 50% value that's already been issued.
Well, what I would hate to see, if the ZBA goes along with this, and we say, wonderful, there's 6 months more for the project, and they get the end of 6 months and another 3 weeks. Okay, then what? I mean, that would be terrible.
Yeah, I don't think, and again, I'm not going to put words or thoughts in the board's mouth. I'm not as concerned about the timing of it. I don't know that you need to restrict the time frame upon them. The building permit can be good for as long as they continue to make progress. So the permit won't, I think they're good for a year, but if you continue to make progress, you can extend, you can do all sorts of things, and they're still going to need a second permit anyway. So I don't think the timing is really the issue here. I think it's the valuation, the ratio.
The other thing, when you're going into a building that's 100-plus years old, okay, even though they've stripped it down to the boards and they know a lot, they found a lot of things in there they didn't anticipate to begin with.
Sure.
Okay, and are likely to find more, which makes the cost estimate for what it takes to get from where they are today to a completed building to even be more ambiguous. You know, it strikes me that their knowledge of whatever estimate they have to finish the estimate or finish the job is only that, an estimate.
Sure.
And it may be subject to all kinds of change. And I would hate to see them have to come back here for a trivial amount of money. Anyway,
I do think, like I said, I think for the purposes of whether the board is going to consider granting or not, I do think that number is important to know, and I do think that it essentially is the extent of the variance being sought, but understanding where you're coming from, I feel like if the board was so inclined, you could probably give a tack on another 10% or something. You could find a way to give a cushion should there be further issue as they get farther along in the project without having to come back, but
Okay.
that's up to you all.
well, in an old building, it's guaranteed. Okay, that's all I had.
I'd just like to make a comment referencing what you said, John. I've looked at the pictures, and I toured the building yesterday, and also looked through the drawings and everything. To me, they've already taken care of the issues with the structure. In other words, the structure is framed, the structure is roofed, the foundation has been taken care of. We're really talking about finishing out. Now the petitioner can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't see the pitfalls that you would have seen 6 or 8 months ago in this project, from how far it's gone on already. In other words, their micro lambs are already up, the structure's stable, the roof's on, the walls are in. I think the structure, I think we're talking about finishing it out. That's just my personal, from looking at the,
Yeah, I agree with that statement. One of the big unknowns is plumbing. You know, there's nothing in anything that I saw in that structure where plumbing had been started and worked on. Where are the pipes? What are the conditions? I mean, you have 120-year-old pipes under the ground?
The ordinance excludes things like plumbing, HVAC, and electrical
Oh, it
from
does?
the computation.
Ah.
So there are a number of things that do not count towards the ratio.
And that alleviates my concern.
Okay. Yeah, and again, we'll let the petitioner speak, but to Phil's point, I think that the amount of work that they've put into this already, I'm guessing they've already encountered a couple of issues that were unforeseen. Sure, that may still happen again through the rest of the process, but I think where Phil was headed was they probably have moved past that stage of the overall project. I think that I would believe that the estimate for the rest of the work would probably be pretty accurate at this point. That's my hope, at least.
any other questions for Brian? Okay. The petitioner now can make their presentation.
Evening. My name is Dane Moxlow, 22664 East River. I am living there with my wife and my daughter. My daughter is actually the 5th generation of my family to live in that house. My father, David, actually grew up there. The house was sold to fund the start of a business, which we still run today, much to the chagrin of my grandmother. We were able to purchase a property about a year ago, I believe. And the overall plan was to have a place for my parents to age in place in this secondary structure, and we would live in the front house. That is what we're after today, is just the ability to complete the project in a timely period. We do have complete plans, so we submitted plans for a full remodel permit. We were asked by the building department to scale that back to meet the cap on the spend. We resubmitted. We were given that approval, and that permit is being worked on currently, as you saw in the photographs. So a lot of work has gone into it already. We do have a very clear picture of what still needs to be done. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Do you have a question? No questions?
So I guess my question to you, thanks, I'm sorry. My question would be, do you have an idea of what the final cost, or approximate what the final cost is going to be, and when the completion date is projected for?
Realistically, if we were given the go-ahead today and the permitting process was relatively smooth, which I believe it will be since we've already submitted most of the permit, but if we were to go back for a full permit, we're guessing within 6 months for sure, but I would like it to be finished this spring.
Okay, so 6 to 8 months is what you're looking at,
Realistically, yes.
realistically, right?
Yep.
Which falls into that 12-month window, the year window anyways. Well, do you know what the cost factor might be?
Our best estimate right now to complete the structure would be about 130 to 150,000.
I'm all set, thank you.
Parker?
No questions.
I'd just like to make a general comment concerning the project. Some of the factors that really have struck me in this petition, and one is we spent a lot of time over the last year and a half or so going through our master plan and what we're trying to accomplish on the island and so forth and so on. And here we have a situation that seems to play right into that. We have a situation that where, though not on the historic register, this is certainly a historic piece of property on Grosse Ile. There's no question about that. It's been here for 100+ years. It was once a large farm. Now it's smaller, but it's still a large parcel of property. Secondly, one of the main concerns I remember from the master plan was that we need more ability for seniors to be able to stay on this island and age in place on this island, as you say. And this seems to check that square. And also, the first thing that came out on the master plan is that we want to keep the rural nature and the waterfront of Grosse Ile was put paramount in the master plan, and I see this project accomplishing that. And what we're talking about, as I see it, and as has been brought out, is that we're talking about waiving of a time limit and an expenditure limit. In other words, can you do it in 3 steps, or if you're going to be allowed to do it, however, or just do it and get it done. And I don't know. That's kind of how I look at this project. I look favorably on it. As far as the building permits are going to be required, the inspections are going to be required. The plan's been submitted. So I don't know. That's my opinion on it at this point. But appreciate the presentation.
Sure. If there's anything else I can answer, happy to.
Anybody? Okay, so we do have one letter that I'd like to read into the record. It came from a resident. And it was, "Dear Grosse Ile Appeals Board, we are writing this letter in support of the Moxlow family who reside at 22664 East River Road and are renovating an existing building on their property so that they be allowed to bypass the ordinance of only spending 50% of the appraised value in a 12-month period. We understand this is to limit anybody from having property on their house that could be rented. We do not believe that is their intent here. The family merely wanted to update an existing property so they could reside in a comfortable situation and not take 5 years for it to be built. As their neighbor, we would appreciate if the construction could be completed in a timely manner. I hope that this letter serves as assistance to their request for the ordinance to be bypassed. If you have any questions or concern, we are happy to answer and assist with any other questions. And that's Anita and James Johnson, and they're 22644 East River Road. And I don't know whether that's the property to the north or the south. The north? So that's the property to the north. So I wanted to read that into the record. And are there any public comments from the audience? That anybody from the audience wish to make any public comments on this appeal? Please. Oh, okay. Renee first? Yeah. Yeah. Just state your name and address.
River. I just wanted to give you a visual on this. You can see from the siding sample that you have. It's sage green, the trim is brown. This house is just gonna blend into the woods. This is not something that's gonna be gaudy and stand out. We want it to purposely just kind of disappear back there. So, just to give you a visual. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, please come up.
Hello.
Eddie Bailey. I'm here with my husband and my daughter, and we live 2 doors north of them. We're also neighbors then of the Johnsons. We are thrilled they are doing this. We can see what they're doing. We love what you're doing. We also live in a home that's well over 100 years old. I applaud that they're doing this and saving it, and I hope they get approval and that it goes well. And the fact that they want to stay and age out on this great island, we just couldn't promote it more. Just want to let you know. We're just 2 doors down, so we think it's going to be a great addition. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. Let's go around the table and discuss this. John, any comments?
I'm ready to make a motion.
Any other comments?
No,
Okay.
I'm ready to make a motion, as Mr. Schweikert
Okay.
is.
You wish to make a motion? Go ahead.
I'll make a motion to, I'm going to need your help on this, Brian, and make sure that I get the bases covered. I make a motion to approve appeal number 25-003. And the variance is to waive the time restriction, the 12-month time restriction, and to waive the cost restriction to complete this building as designed, with the justification that this is a 100-year-old building and corresponding renovations require more than what the ordinance would ever have intended. That's a motion.
Any support?
I'll support.
I support.
Okay. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair, sorry. Can we just tack on that board finds, essentially for what you just said, John, is fine if we can just connect that to finding of practical difficulty. In essence, the term,
It is a practical, yes, thank you. I knew you'd help me out.
I'm here.
Any discussion?
No, it actually meets 3 different criteria as far as I'm concerned. This would be practical difficulty, substantial justice, and,
Okay, we're ready to vote. The petitioner can request that we delay the vote or we proceed with the vote, understanding that the vote would need to be unanimous to pass. Proceed with the vote? Okay, let's roll call.
Aye.
Chairman, aye.
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 Motion passes. Okay, so we had one other item that Mr. Mills put on the agenda.
Thank you for entertaining that, Mr. Chair. I
much.
appreciate it. The discussion, you can, folks can stick around if you want, or you can leave, it's up to you. But the discussion item is, I would like to reestablish our meeting time if the board is okay with it, based on the current work schedule. This has happened to me for the last few meetings now, where I'm walking in here either right on time or 5 or 10 minutes late. It's hard for me to get to where I am at to these meetings in a timely manner with our meetings scheduled at 6 p.m. I would like to change the time to either 6:30 or 7 p.m. if the board is okay with it. That's why I'm throwing out there.
Planning Commission meets at 7 o'clock. Why not just double it up with this?
I'm good with that. If everybody else is okay with it, I'm perfect with that. But right now, and I know that myself and Mr. Wojo and then I think Mr. Hopper is going to fall into the same situation. He also works for city government, and it makes it kind of difficult for us to get here in a timely manner at 6 p.m.
I'll make a motion. Let's change the meeting time to 7 p.m.
Second.
Okay, and I agree with that. DPS meets at 7 o'clock. We've done that for years, and I don't have an issue with that.
Okay.
I have no issue understanding all the construction. I
Thank you
support.
very much. I appreciate it.
So we have a motion and a second. Let's call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, then passes unanimously. It'll be 7 o'clock from now on, Brian.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Sorry, Brian, if that causes you an issue, but okay.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting's adjourned.